Welcome to Frogfoot Holler, y'all. I'm Michael. My nephew Colton's behind the camera. And today I'm talking about tomatoes, or tomatoes, or tomatoes, or just plain out maters. Guys, don't matter which way you say it, a tomato is one of the best vegetables you can grow in the garden if you like them. That's if you like them. But a lot of people do, guys, and they are really, really good. That first tomato you get out of your garden, that first ripe, bright red tomato that you just pick off the plant, and oh, you just can't wait to bite into it. Put a little salt on there, woo, buddy, you talking about good. And I can't wait for mine. But guys, I'm out here with my summer pick tomatoes and my tachi tomatoes. Both of them are a determinate style tomato. One I'm going to be using for canning, which will be my summer pick, and my tachis are a paste tomato, which I'll be making salsas or just making tomato paste with. But guys, these determinate style tomatoes also are bred to be disease resistant. Now I say disease resistant because that doesn't mean disease proof. Down here in the South and many areas of the country, diseases for tomatoes are aggravating. And it's like you almost can't help but get a tomato disease at some point in the time. But there are things you can do to help prevent it or help keep that from happening. And that's what I'm going to be showing today. So just remember, disease resistant don't mean disease proof. You still have to work with it a little bit. Now, this row right here, we've already done. We've trimmed them up, we've got paper down, and I'll be telling you why. Now, when I'm talking about help preventing diseases, I'm talking about soil-borne diseases, such as your vercillium wilt, your fusarium wilt. Yeah, they sound pretty much close, but they do two different things, and both of them will basically leap onto your tomatoes. And how they do that is through the rain and through overhead watering. So that's the reason why a lot of people do underground watering or soaker hoses or drip lines to keep that from happening. I use overhead watering. And also, when we get rain, you can't help but overhead water. But I'm going to show you how to help prevent those diseases and other soil-borne diseases jumping on your tomato plants. So let's get looking at it. All right, guys. We are here with one of my summer pick tomato plants. And as you can see, it's nice and bushy. But the problem is all these lower leaves right here. See that leaf? These leaves? And what happens is the soil, when it rains or you overhead water, the water hits the soil and bounces back and splashes onto the leaves. Again, it's kind of like having little dirt explosions hitting your leaves like that. And that's not good because your soil-borne diseases are in the soil, and that's how they get onto your plants. So what I do, and what I have done many a times, is take and cut all the lower limbs off like this. And you don't want to keep these in your garden. I don't put these in my compost pile. I just throw them out in the woods. But you just go through and you trim up just like that. Now you see how that's raised these leaves right here? Now you see this one right here? See how it's touching? I still don't want that. So what I'm going to do is take and cut back here. So I cut it off there, and anything that's close to the ground like that, I'm just going to go ahead and cut off. And if I see anything that looks bad, I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. So this is how I actually trim up my tomato plants. Now remember, these are a determinate style tomato, so they're only going to get so high. So there's only so much trimming you can do to these before you start having trouble with them. So be careful with that. But they're still in the younger stages, and they should get about 3 to 4 foot high. So they still got a little ways to go. But that's how, one way, I keep soil-borne diseases off my plants, off my tomato plants. Now let me show you another way. Alright guys, we're here with my tachi tomato plant, and what I'm about to do, we've already done on several of my other tomato plants. So we only have 30 more to go. Now, if you'll take a look, you'll see I've already trimmed up this Tachi tomato plant. All right. Now remember, soil-borne diseases, when the rain or water hits the ground, bounces up and hits the plant, that's not good. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to clear this pathway, any weeds or anything like that. And then I'm going to take some paper like this. This is just brown construction paper you can get at Lowe's. I got a whole roll of it for $11. And you cut it into about 1 foot squares. Cut a slice down the center of it, and then you can take it, put it around the tomato plant like that, which there's a leaf right there. Put around the tomato plant like that, push it down, and I like to cover the edges with some dirt and then pack it down, so that way I ain't got to worry about anything grabbing this paper. Now, the further away the dirt is away from the plant, the better it is. Now, will this be 100% effective? No, it won't. Nothing's 100% effective. Well, unless you use chemicals. And I don't like using chemicals in my garden. But now, you can see that paper's down, and it's going to hit that paper, or the water is going to hit the paper, soak through the paper, and get into the soil without bouncing any of the soil-borne diseases onto the plant. But also, guys, this paper method has another effect. It also keeps weeds from being around your tomato plants. So it keeps the weed pressure down around your tomato plants. And again, it's not 100% effective, but it does one heck of a job, y'all. All right, so me and my nephew, we're going to jump into super frog mode here, and he's going to be putting down the paper, and I'm going to be doing the trimming. So we're going to hop to it. Boogaloo, 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 boogaloo. All right, guys, we're back from super frog mode. And as you can see, trimming these tomato plants and putting down this paper has made a world of difference. Now, I do want to caution you on one thing. When you're putting down the paper, be careful not to break the stem. If you do happen to break the stem and it's still intact, just go ahead and mound dirt back up around it. Now, tomatoes are the types that will grow roots, and it should be all right. It just depends on how bad the stem's broken. It's just one of those things, maybe it can be saved. But I tell you, 79 out of 80 tomato plants, I'm not going to be mad at my nephew. At least not on camera. But guys, this makes a world of difference. This helps your tomato plants, and it helps them grow, helps the weeds from being too much pressure around them, and it helps disease pressure. Now, you can also do this using newspaper. You can use it doing weed fabric, just pretty much anything that you can put down to stop the dirt being bounced up on your leaves when the rain comes or you're overhead watering. Now, I got something to show y'all. Come take a look at this. Squishy squash. I got me some squishy squash. Actually, it's not squishy squash, it's just squash. But guys, I want to tell you a little tip, a little secret. When you're picking your squash, if you'll take your thumbnail and push into the skin just a little bit, if your thumbnail or fingernail breaks that skin real easy, like that, the squash is really good and it's still tender. However, if you get one like this one, and I think this one's a little too big, but let's find out. Take it. You see how easy my thumbnail or fingernail just went in there? That means that this one's still good and tender. So guys, you can let your squash grow, but you got to be careful when you're doing that, because the seeds get bigger, and when the seeds get bigger, the skin gets tougher. When the skin gets tougher, the squash gets tougher, and it's not as good to eat. So I try to pick mine a little bit younger than most people do. Like my straight neck varieties, that's a pretty good size right there. Almost too big. So guys, when you're picking your squash, know your squash. When you know your squash, you can pick it at the right times for you. Now, there's be people out there all the time, they'll say, oh, you're picking it too big or you're picking it too small. It's your squash, pick it when you want to. Now, if you happen to like it certain ways, by all means, go ahead and pick it that way. But we picked our squash just a couple of days ago. I'm serious, it was literally a couple of days ago. And we got a whole bunch. And well, here we are again, just a few days later, and we got a whole bunch. Speaking of, I got a bug on me. Blech, stupid bug. But guys, that's my tip today. Use your thumbnail or fingernail to test if your squash is still tender. Now, you'll figure it out as you go along. It takes time. But guys, I appreciate y'all joining in with me today. And if you learned something, it ain't my fault. My channel's purely entertainment only, not educational. Lord have mercy. I done confused myself. My channel's purely entertainment. Any learning done on my channel's not my fault. All right, guys. Y'all have a froggy day. That's been Michael with Frogfoot Holler.